UFC Fight Night, Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili. Welcome to another UFC prediction and analysis video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. He goes by Zan, I go by Harris as usual. Fight by fight predictions and analysis from that betting perspective specifically. We want to let you know which fights are worth the value, which fights to avoid, which underdog has the best shot at winning, and some parlay picks toward the end of the video as well. If you are a regular tuner into this show, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. If this is your first time checking us out, we appreciate it. Don't necessarily subscribe yet. We want to prove our value to you. We want to prove that we can provide you with valuable picks, valuable insight. What we would appreciate from everyone is a thumbs up on this video. And of course, we want to hear from you in the comments. Really good fight night card after a big pay-per-view. Definitely happy to see that. We have 13 fights overall. 7 of them are on the prelims. 6 of them are on the main card. We're going to get started right away with fight number 1 of our prelims. We're looking at Tyson Nam versus Bruno Silva. Tyson Nam beat Ode Osborne back in August. He's a striker, pretty technically sound. He's going to be very consistent. The movement's nothing special. He will kind of stay in front of you, but he's effective with that style. Good at controlling center, good at cutting the ring off. He has some fakes and level changes included in his game. Maybe too patient of a striker sometimes, but again, just sort of effective in that stance that he has. When he does let it go, his combinations are pretty solid. He is primarily a boxer, has good power, especially in that right hand. You look at his record there, 21 wins, 13 of them are via KO, TKO, including his last fight. So you know that he always has that in him. He's going up against Bruno Silva, who's on a 2-fight winning streak. Almost 2 years since his last fight, though. He beat Vitor Rodriguez. That was back in May 2021. Bruno Silva does have good movement around the ring. He fights from the outside. He throws a lot of fakes out there. Really tries to get his opponent to bite. Quick, sharp striking, quick hands. I'm going to use that calf kick a lot, which is great to see. Good power as well. He can land takedowns. We look at his numbers there, almost 3 takedowns per fight. Just 64% takedown defense, so he is susceptible to that. But he does have good scrambling ability and good ability to get up when he is taken down. I don't think that part will matter in this fight. I actually think that most of this fight will stay standing. Ring rust could definitely be there for Bruno Silva. Tyson Nam is definitely dangerous with the power. But otherwise, I mean, I mentioned it before, he presents a fairly basic style. So what I'm anticipating here, I anticipate Bruno Silva's movement, Bruno Silva's speed potentially being a problem for Tyson Nam. I anticipate Bruno Silva, again, just having the more complete MMA game when you factor in what he can do on the ground. Yes, Tyson Nam does have 100% takedown defense, but Bruno Silva, I mean, he's trained with Henry Cejudo for a long time, right? So you know he's going to have that edge there. And you know it's possible that he's going to get it anyway. Power threat is there on both sides, but I think for Nam to win, the power needs to be a factor, whereas for Bruno Silva to win, it doesn't. So Bruno Silva is going to be my pick. Again, he's more complete, more speed on the feet, complete MMA game. I like him in all aspects here. Bruno Silva is my pick.
Yeah, I'll be quick, man. I'm on the Bulldog side. I'm on Bruno Silva as well. Tyson, getting old, almost 40. But he does have that shot. He does have that power shot. He can end any fight with one hit. This guy has 12 losses though, right? So he's lost quite a bit. And I think in a fight like this, I can see Nam falling around the ring trying to get that heavy shot in. But I like Bruno's more well-rounded game. He could mix in the takedowns. He's gonna have the submission advantage as well. I think he's gonna be able to outstrike him. Aside from the big heavy shots, I think Bruno is the better striker. But again, it is close because Tyson does have that equalizer. But I do like Bruno Silva being the more well-rounded guy in this fight here.
Fight number 2 of our prelims, Victor Henry versus Tony Gravely. Victor Henry had that unanimous decision loss to Raphael Assunção back in October. Good clean stand-up overall, good calculated movement. He sets up his offense pretty well. He uses a jab regularly. A lot of fakes and feints included in his attack as well. And he has really good timing, especially as a counterpuncher. He's not somebody that's going to be rushing on the, in his striking on the feet at any point. He has good striking IQ. He has a diverse range of attacks. Again, just really effective with that striking prowess. Haven't seen it in the UFC, but his grappling does look decent. I have seen him land takedowns as well. In the UFC, it's been, that sort of in the pocket, good striking technique, point fighting type of style that we see from him. I anticipate that being the same case for this fight as well. Going up against Tony Gravely, of course, is going to present a different style than he is in some respects. Tony Gravely had that unanimous decision loss to Javid Basharat back in September. He's going to be that kickboxer, wrestler style of fighter. He's actually a pretty decent all-around fighter. Very athletic, not bad in any one area. The striking IQ is there, good technical, quick combinations come out of him. Sharp hands, good calf kick, good wrestling. Of course, we see the takedown numbers there, almost 6 per fight, almost 50% accuracy, which is very impressive. Sometimes that number can be deceiving because although he has that takedown ability, he can be out-grappled, and he can't really keep fighters on the ground, right? So sometimes that high takedown number isn't a good thing. Either way, close fight, as we see on the odds. There is reasons to like both fighters. I do anticipate Victor Henry being the better striker. He outstruck Raoni Barcelos, right? He had Raphael Assunção on the back foot all fight due to his striking. But Gravely, of course, should be better with the takedowns. I think the key to this fight is, though, it is going to be Henry's defensive guard, right? Very active on top. Gravely, he's not the best at keeping guys down. So what are those exchanges going to look like? We know that Gravely is capable on the feet. It could make this fight hard to predict as a result. I've been going back and forth on this one because Victor Henry, for whatever reason, just did not look amazing in that Assunção fight. And I want to believe that he gets this one back as a result of looking pretty lackluster. But I think I have to reluctantly go with Tony Gravely on this one. That Raphael Assunção fight sort of exposed some holes in Victor Henry's game. It showed me an inability for him to adjust. I think stylistically, Tony Gravely can mimic some of those things that frustrated Victor Henry in his last fight. I can see 5+ takedowns landed for Tony Gravely. And again, I think it's going to be a key factor in sort of like a split decision type of win. So that's what I'm anticipating here. Tony Gravely, again, reluctantly, no interest in betting on this one, but Tony Gravely is going to be my pick.
Yeah, this is a really, really hard fight because we know, as you mentioned, Gravely's going to have that wrestling advantage, and he has a really high percentage as far as getting that takedown. And he's showing improvements in his stand-up. He is showing some power as well. Victor Henry, he should be the better striker here. He should be able to put on a pace that, because he is throwing a lot of shots per minute, much more than Gravely, so he's going to be the more active striker. And he does have a ground game, so he does have knowledge with the grappling. I do think Gravely will be able to get takedowns, but as the fight goes on, Gravely does slow down. He does slow down. I'm actually a Gravely fan. I like his style. But his cardio, if he's fighting a guy that is going to be hard to put away, that has cardio, those are the tougher fights for Gravely. And I think that Victor Henry has that. I'm scared to pick Victor Henry because of he let me down in that Assunção fight. But I just think Assunção really wanted that win. It was stylistically a bad matchup for Victor Henry when you look at really taking how the fight went. Victor Henry had nothing as far as the counters that Assunção was throwing. I don't think Tony Gravely has the same counter attack that Assunção has, that sneaky boxing style. So I do think that Victor Henry will have success on the feet after that first round. Gravely's going to slow down, and I can see Victor Henry kind of putting on a pace and winning two out of the 3 rounds here.
Let's move on to fight number 3. We have Ariane Lipski versus JJ Aldrich. Ariane Lipski, she lost to Priscilla Cachoeira back in August. She's a striker. We know she has hands. We know she has power. The striking is pretty crisp. She can put those combinations together. She likes to fight coming forward. No takedown defense, of course, is her issue. She doesn't really do much off of her back. And that's how fighters have been able to beat her. She has worked on making her ground game a little bit more well-rounded, but she still lacks in that department. Going up against JJ Aldrich, a little bit more well-rounded. She lost to Erin Blanchfield back in June. Decent pace, likes to come forward, not afraid to engage. give a shot to, sorry, take a shot to give a shot type of striking sometimes. She is going to throw multiple punches at a time. A lot of toughness on her side. And primarily a boxer, just stylistically with her striking. She does use that sort of clinch work against the cage, that sort of dirty box type of style, and she can land the takedown. I know the numbers aren't too encouraging, just one takedown per fight, but she does have that ability to do so. I think that toughness and cardio are going to be two distinguishing factors that I'm going to look for in this fight. Ariane Lipski, to me, she's kind of like a C-class Viviane Araújo in that her striking looks good. It's mainly that early fight power threat that is her biggest weapon. But as the fight progresses, fatigue starts to kick in. That power threat is not there as much. And look for, Ariane Lipski to potentially get pieced up once that happens. I can see Aldrich having her way in this one. Again, I think that toughness is there. I think that she can handle that early threat that Lipski can be on the feet. I think that Aldrich's clinch, her dirty box, her occasional takedown, her physical strength, her continuous pace. I anticipate all of these things being problems for Lipski's cardio. Can't say it's a lock, of course, but I really don't see how Lipski wins this fight unless, of course, it's a puncher's chance early in the fight. So as a result, I think JJ Aldrich pretty comfortably. Cannot say it's a lock, but JJ Aldrich pretty comfortably is going to be my pick.
Yeah, I'm JJ all day on this one, man. I think the striking is going to be a good striking fight early on. With JJ, I think has that power advantage that she has one of the best straight lefts in women's MMA, and I think she's going to be able to find a home for that in this fight. Ariane Lipski, she's a good fighter, and she's obviously Brazilian, so she does have submissions as well. She had a knee bar against Luana Carolina, a really good knee bar, how she locked that in. So JJ needs to be aware of the submissions because I think JJ could also take this fight to the mat. I think she's going to have the takedown advantage. I think she'll be able to get Lipski to the fence, get the double leg, get her on her butt, and play from the top for a bit. But I think eventually Lipski's going to slow down. As Harris mentioned, I think she's going to slow down. And I see Aldrich looking really good this weekend. I think she's going to look good here. Might get a performance bonus, but I think this is a fight that she's going to look good in. So I'm going to go JJ Aldrich. I'm pretty confident, but again, like Harris, I can't say it's women's MMA, but I think she gets it done here.
Fight number 4 of our prelims, Mario Bautista versus Guido Cannetti. We see Bautista as the biggest favorite on the card at -1,000. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He beat Benito Lopez back in November. He has good boxing, good movement, good fakes and feints, good distance control. Fights from center of the octagon more times than not. The striking IQ has been shown to be there, the striking diversity as well. The cardio is looking good too, especially with the pace that he pushes. He pushes a really good, consistent pace. And the wrestling has been looking really solid as well. We look at the numbers there, just over 2 takedowns per fight and a very impressive 66% on the accuracy side of things. He's really showing himself to be a really well-rounded fighter and really starting to look good lately. And he's up against Guido Cannetti, who's on a 2-fight winning streak, which you definitely have to acknowledge. But you also have to acknowledge is his age. I mean, he's still performing, but still a 43-year-old striker, getting it done at this level. Good movement. He fights from the outside. He is light on his feet with some good kicks. His leg kicks can quickly add up on his opponents. Definitely willing to engage as well if you do back him up too much. And he can surprise some of his opponents with his speed and his power. So you got to make sure you're sharp while you're fighting him. But wouldn't really pay too much attention to his takedown numbers. We see that at 2 per fight. He's only landed 1 takedown in his last 4 fights. So really just expect the striking side of Guido Cannetti. But let me just keep this short. Mario Bautista, probably the most confident pick on this card. I mean, you look at him, 29 years old. He's in his athletic prime versus 43 years old on the side of Guido Cannetti. Bautista's more complete striker. I think Bautista has that forward pressure and pace that'll work in his advantage. I can see Bautista landing takedowns if he needs to, and just being physically bigger, physically stronger in this fight. A Bautista early finish would not surprise me at all. So Mario Bautista should get it done, no problem. Big favorite for a reason. Pretty confident in this one.
Yeah, we got Mario coming in on a three fight winning streak. Aside from that knockout from Trevin Jones, he's been looking pretty good in the UFC. Looking pretty good, and he's actually getting better. He also has a loss, obviously, to Sanhagen on his debut, but he's getting better each fight. He's showing the ground game, and he's really good at using his length. And that's one of the big things with his game is his height and his reach, and he knows how to use it. I think he gets this one done because with Cannetti, you're only you gotta expect one good round out of him that first round. He comes out really good in that first round. But at his age now, at this point, 43, he's not keeping that pace up as the fight goes on. And we know that Bautista can. Bautista has 3 good rounds in him. So I like Bautista here to get this done. The odds are really, really high, but I could definitely see why. So I like Bautista in this spot.
Fight number 5 of the prelims, Sedriques Dumas versus Josh Fremd. Dumas is making his debut. He's an undefeated fighter. He fought on Dana White Contender Series back in August. Pretty solid, patient striking from what I've seen from him. Pretty composed, yet still has good power. 4 of those 7 wins are via KO, TKO. I like his kicks specifically. He does have a head kick KO to his credit and a liver kick TKO as well. So that kick is a good weapon of his. Solid jab as well from what I'm seeing. And he has a good ground game, good top control, good at holding position. His grappling looks pretty good as well. Even in defensive guard situations, I've seen him use his grappling IQ to either reverse that position or work his way back up. So looks pretty solid from what I've seen on the regional circuit. Let's see how it translates to the UFC. Josh Fremd, on the other hand, is on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to Tresean Gore back in October. Decent jab on his side. He likes to come forward. He likes to pick his shots. Has decent timing and technique as well. Doesn't really go at a crazy pace by any means, but he does have good toughness and good consistency to his pace. Josh Fremd, however, a little bit one-dimensional. He does have 3 rear naked chokes to his name amongst his 9 wins, but he's pretty much going to rely on his striking to get him his wins. Horrible takedown defense on top of that from what I've seen. Josh Fremd, as I mentioned, is a striker, but I actually believe that Sedriques Dumas is the better striker in this situation. And I think Dumas has a big advantage with the ground game on top of Fremd, again, having that horrible takedown defense. So if Fremd is effective on the feet, I can see Dumas going to the takedown game. I don't think Fremd is a UFC level fighter. I mean, just sort of flat out. So I think they're giving the undefeated Dumas a very beatable opponent, a tough opponent. So can't be all the way confident here. Again, we don't know how Dumas's skill set will translate to the UFC. But analytically, when I break this one down, I like Dumas here. I think Dumas gets it done.
Yeah, you got to like Dumas here, and I think you're getting pretty decent odds for this one here as well. Dumas is gonna have a reach advantage as well. He's a shorter guy, but he's built better. He's he has that grappling as well. He does jiu-jitsu as well. On the Contender Series, he was able to get a takedown in that match. He looked good on the mat. He looked good with the grappling, albeit he was fighting a guy that was mainly a kickboxer, mainly a striker. But in that fight, he actually hurt the striker on the feet, which shows you his level in terms of the striking. So in this fight, like Harris said, I think Dumas is going to be the better striker against Fremd. I think Fremd is a bit slow in the striking exchanges. And I think Dumas is going to look for the finish here. Tapology's all over it. The odds they're giving you a minus 140. That's a really good play. So I like Dumas here, and I really love the odds you're getting for this one.
All right, let's move on to fight number 6. We have Raphael Assunção versus Davey Grant. Raphael Assunção, unanimous decision win over Victor Henry. We mentioned that a bit earlier in the card. That fight, again, was back in October. Introduced as a BJJ and Muay Thai fighter. He's slightly unorthodox. Switch stance, a lot of movement. He can fight off that back foot with good lateral movement. He can be the fighter coming forward as well. He has a good calf kick. He picks his shots pretty well. And he's a pretty good counter puncher. He can be explosive, again, as he finds that timing, as he looks for those counter opportunities. One thing about Assunção is that sort of in the meantime, not going to be the most active striker. Gives you an opportunity to try to put the pace on him. He has the ability to land the takedown. We look at the numbers there, 1.5 per fight. Not overly impressive from a wrestling perspective, but he has really good top control. He has, really good ground and pound, really good grappling positioning to allow himself to stay on top. Still an effective veteran at 40 years old and still, again, performing at this level. Davey Grant, not much younger. I mean, he's 37. So, maybe age is not a factor in this fight. He beat Luis Smolka back in May. He's a switch stance fighter, a lot of kicks, a lot of movement. He's going to stay really light on his feet, keep it diverse in his attack. He has a good pace about him, has good activity, hasn't shown his ground game in the last few fights, but he does have good takedowns from what I've seen. We look at the numbers there. I mean, they still show some respect to that 1.5 per fight. On paper, he's a solid grappler to go along with that. Either way, this fight to me really hard to predict. Again, both of these guys are up there in age. I mentioned both of their ages, 40 for Assunção, 37 for Davey Grant. Grant has just 65% takedown defense. And with both of these guys, again, at about 1.5 takedowns per fight, you compare that to Assunção's 78% takedown defense. So that tells me, at least statistically, Assunção is going to be the more likely of the two to land the takedown. Assunção, on top of that, maybe has the grappling advantage. But again, like I said, Davey Grant is capable there. So I don't anticipate sort of like Assunção gets him down and the fight is over. I think Grant will be able to protect himself from that perspective. I think the difference for me for this fight is going to be with the striking. I do like Davey Grant's striking better, especially because of his activity. I think his pace could be a problem for Raphael Assunção. Again, Assunção relies on that outside movement, but I can see Grant closing distance, making Assunção look a little uncomfortable. Remember that Davey Grant's activity and pace, it was giving Adrian Yanez problems in the third round of their fight, and that led to just a split decision win for Yanez. So that tells me that he's going to have, at least theoretically, no problem doing that to Assunção, who's not as good of a striker as a Yanez, in the moments that this fight stays on the feet. So just overall, I like Davey Grant to get it done here, but close fight, not interested in betting on this one, but picking Davey Grant.
Yeah, it's a tough fight in a sense. You don't know what you're getting from Assunção. You don't know what performance he's going to come with, right? Because this guy has all the IQ in the world. He does have all the skill, but of course the age. So we're not sure really what Assunção we're going to get. In his last fight, he looked really well against Victor Henry. Pretty much schooled him, beat him every round, made it look easy. This is a different fight though, because Henry didn't have that power threat. So Assunção just did his thing, right? But in this fight, Davey Grant, the only guy to knock out, what's his name? Jonathan Martinez. Yeah, knocked out Jonathan Martinez. I don't think Martinez has been knocked out by anybody else. And he's fought in good strikers. This is the only guy that was able to knock him out, Davey Grant. And he has heavy hands, and I think at some point he could catch Assunção. Assunção does, as we know, his lights have been out a couple times. He's been knocked out. And I think Davey Grant has the power. Stylistically, I just think he's going to get a shot in there that Assunção is not going to respond to really well. And when you look at the grappling, I do think Assunção should go this route. I think he could get some takedowns. I think he can get some good top control in this fight. But let's not forget Davey Grant, when he came into the UFC through the Ultimate Fighter, going back like 10 years on the Ultimate Fighter, this guy was submitting guys like left, right, and center, man. This guy, let me check. This guy got an armbar, second round, rear naked choke. I remember him as a guy that his specialty was that grappling. He can submit these guys. He was dangerous on the mat. In the past couple of years or so, he's showing that he has heavy hands, and I think he's gonna be able to connect at some point here. So I'm gonna go Davey Grant here to get the win here, but I wouldn't bet on this probably, but I do think he gets it done here with a heavy shot.
Seventh and final fight of the prelims, we're looking at Karl Williams versus Łukasz Brzeski. For Brzeski, split decision loss to Martin Buday. That was in his August debut. not a real heavyweight. He comes in around 235, 240 pounds. I think he can easily fight at 205. Comfortable on the feet otherwise. He does lack some striking technique. He can swing big, miss big at times. He does throw the kicks with regularity. Relatively basic fighter, though, sort of that basic two-punch combination. Good pop on his punches because of his size. Good pace early in the fight. That doesn't surprise me either. Don't think he's a takedown artist by any means, but he does have an active ground and pound if he finds himself in those situations. And like many heavyweights, cardio is a huge concern with him. He does slow down significantly. Karl Williams, on the other hand, is on a 4-fight winning streak. He competed on Dana White Contender Series back in September. He's not a real heavyweight either. He competed around 230 pounds. And I think that was his first fight at heavyweight, if I'm not mistaken. Also comfortable on the feet, though he's not amazing. He fights from range. He fights tall. He's going to have just an inch reach advantage, but he's definitely going to look like the longer fighter in this one. Regular jab usage, some calf kicks. He can be effective, with quick jabs, with straight punches, with explosiveness. At some point, he's going to use that explosiveness to look for the takedown. And he showed his wrestling ability. He showed his takedown ability on Dana White Contender Series. Took down a wrestler that was 35 pounds heavier than he was and was effectively able to keep him down. Good top control from what I've seen from Karl Williams. He has sort of that blanket lay and pray type of style and active enough with the ground and pound to score points with that top control. Karl Williams should be good here. I'm anticipating too big of a wrestling advantage, especially with it being an active part of his strategy. I think he matches Brzeski on the feet, at least in that neither of them are that good. And I think he's going to have a key cardio advantage going into the second round, going into the third round, especially with that wrestling pace that I anticipate him at least attempting. I may not feel comfortable betting this one. Not only is it heavyweight beware, but it's also a low-level fight beware. But in terms of making a pick, I feel pretty comfortable picking Karl Williams on this one.
Yeah, you got to take Karl in this spot. You got to take him in this spot because Lucas is he's gonna want to keep it striking. He's gonna want to outstrike Williams, but Williams' striking is not bad at all. He can definitely hold his own. He can definitely surprise people with his striking, and he has power. But again, he's gonna get this to the mat. He's gonna utilize the wrestling in his fight against the Lawson guy on the Contender Series. This guy was supposed to be a state champion, 3-time wrestling champion. Penn State wrestler. This guy was getting taken down repeatedly. And I'll be honest, Karl Williams made it look real easy. He was a big underdog in that fight, and he made it look real easy. I think he's going to utilize the same approach here. I think he's going to be able to get Lucas down. And I think Karl Williams' cardio can hold up with that style. So I'm going to go Karl Williams here to get the win.
Let's take it to our main card. Again, 6 fights on the main card. Let's start with fight number 1. We're looking at Vitor Petrino versus Anton Turkalj. For Vitor Petrino, undefeated Brazilian. He's making his UFC debut. He competed on Dana White Contender Series in September. He was originally supposed to debut in December against Tafon Nchukwi, so that kind of lets you know what the UFC thinks of him. 6 of his 7 wins are via KO, TKO, so that's going to speak to his power. Big power with the striking, unsurprisingly. Expect a lot of hands, not really too many kicks, but good forward pressure. Takes his time, though. Doesn't necessarily drain his gas tank unnecessarily. He is surprisingly light on the feet. He has a good long jab. He's a good counterpuncher as well. Showed really good takedown defense, good scrambling, good ability to defend submissions as well. Are some good things I've seen from him. He also showed what he can do with his top control on Dana White Contender Series against a grappler. Really nasty ground and pound he showed as well. Anton Turkalj, on the other hand, lost to Jailton Almeida back in September. That was a short notice fight for him, I believe, because of the 220 catch weight. This one's at light heavyweight, so back at 205. He's average on the feet, nothing really to highlight, maybe other than the fact that he uses all of his weapons, punches, knees, kicks, elbows, really uses all of his tools effectively. Otherwise, just not really amazing striking, kind of average at best. He's going to want to bring the fight to the ground. So that doesn't surprise me why his striking's not great. He wants to chain the wrestling attempts together. He wants to try to get your back. Really tries to stay on his opponents with good combination of prioritizing control, using ground and pound to open things up, and also looking for those submission attempts and sort of cycling between the three. But prediction-wise, I do like the Brazilian here to remain undefeated. Similar to Anton Turkalj's last fight against Jailton Almeida, I think Vitor Petrino will be able to nullify Anton's best weapon, which is that grappling. I think Petrino will be able to defend Turkalj's takedowns. And if Turkalj takes him down, or Turkalj, I should say, sorry, takes him down, I don't think Turkalj has the physical strength to be able to keep Petrino down. I do think Petrino will be able to defend any submission attempts as well that we see Turkalj attempt. And then when it comes to the striking, I think that Petrino is actually a lot more dangerous and can be a lot more effective than Anton Turkalj. I can even see sort of a counter punch KO type of situation, similar to Vitor Petrino's Dana White Contender Series fight. I'm not sure what I'm missing because the odds are at a pick'em. Analytically, I really like Vitor Petrino to get this done. I'm not too high on Anton Turkalj, so Vitor is my pick.
Yeah, this is definitely was one of the harder fights for me to make a selection here, because Vitor is scary with that power. This guy could put anybody out, it looks like. When he throws, he's planted, his feet are planted. He puts everything in each shot. And he could definitely knock Anton out of this fight. He can knock him out. I could definitely see it. And the only issue I have with Vitor is he does have power, but he doesn't have the best technique, I think, with the striking. He doesn't have the greatest technique, and it looks like he gasses, or he slows down. And I saw a fight he was slowing down, and it was mainly a striking fight. He slowed down in. And I think if he's fighting a guy that's going to be mixing in takedowns, I think Anton's going to be able to get some takedowns if he survives that first round. I think at that point is when you really see Vitor really conserve his energy. But again, Anton needs to get this fight to the mat to get the win here, because on the feet, Vitor is deadly. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the knockout win here. But I'm going to go with Anton to get you some wrestling here. I think I don't think his size is going to be that big of a thing here. I think we're looking at his fight versus what's that guy's name again? Oh man, the beast, the Brazilian Jailton Almeida. Remember, they fought at heavyweight. He came into that fight like 200 and what? Oh, it says here 214 pounds his last weigh-in a heavyweight fight. Almeida wasn't big himself, but he was much bigger than this guy. And now he's going back to his original 205-pound weight class. I think he should be good here. So I'm gonna go Anton here to get some wrestling going, tire him out, and get the win here.
All right, fight number 2 of the main card, Said Nurmagomedov versus Jonathan Martinez. Great bantamweight fight here. Nurmagomedov had a good win over Said Yakub Kakhramonov. That was back in December. Good lateral movement, good striking, high-level, diverse striker with a good calf kick, high kick, spin kick, combinations, in addition to the counter-punching ability. Being a Dagestani fighter, of course, with his name, you got to also be very confident in his wrestling ability and his takedown defense. And even though he keeps the fight on the feet rather than being a wrestler, you got to know that is there. Again, strong takedown defense, strong grappling ability as well, like we saw in his last fight. Jonathan Martinez is on a 4-fight win streak. Like Said Nurmagomedov, he had a good win over Cub Swanson back in October. Good striker, good boxing, good movement, good kicks. Stand-up is very kick-heavy at times in terms of his approach. Really good calf kick, and he's going to mix up those kicks. So really, be a question mark, really keep his opponents guessing. We saw that on full display in his last fight, finished Cub Swanson due to the kicks. He's a pretty complete striker. He's a pretty dynamic striker as well. What I like about Jonathan Martinez, good continuous pressure. It's patient, it's constant, it's active. And also, just half a takedown per fight on his end. So stylistically, really expect him to keep it on the feet. I think this fight in general is going to occur almost exclusively on the feet. Both guys are going to have their moments. Both guys prefer the striking. I do anticipate this being a high-level fight here. Both of these guys are very dynamic strikers. We know that Jonathan Martinez maybe a bit more of a threat with the power, but I'm actually going to go with Said Nurmagomedov here. I think that Said's striking is a little bit cleaner with the combinations and specifically with the striking speed. I think this one's going to be entertaining. I want to enjoy it just from an entertainment perspective, so I will not be betting, but I will be picking Said Nurmagomedov on this one.
Yeah, this one is real hard, man. I can see both guys. I can see Jonathan outstriking him. I can see Said outstriking him. We're gonna find out Saturday who is the better striker. I'm really high on Jonathan Martinez. Is his striking? He's really smart there with that striking. He gets the leg kicks going. He mixes in the kicks, high, low, medium. Like it's hard the way he mixes his attacks. And Said is wild, man. This guy has a lot of technique as well. He has a lot of spinning attacks, and I think he has some power as well to really hurt Martinez, because as we know, Martinez has been knocked out in the UFC. He's been flattened, right? But on the feet, I think it's pretty close, man. I'm not even sure who's better, and if someone is better, it's not by a lot. So it could be a game of inches on the feet, who lands first or who makes the first mistake. But for me, the grappling, I gotta think Said, if he's on the losing end of these strikes, he's gonna turn to some grappling, 100%. Like, he's gonna have to do that against this guy, and he does have the grappling edge completely with the wrestling and the submission, the BJJ, the sambo, whatever he's using over there. So I'm gonna go with him. I'm gonna go with Said Nurmagomedov, but this is a tough fight. I can easily see Jonathan winning this. This is Jonathan. There's a lot of value on him this week. Said might be getting a lot of love from the bettors because of his last thing. He's nothing like Khabib and those guys, but he's legit. He's well-rounded, better striker than those guys, but not as good of a wrestler, but he can wrestle. So I'm going to go with Said, man, being the more well-rounded guy here to get the win.
Fight number 3 of the main card, we have Ricardo Ramos versus Austin Lingo. Ramos had that win over Danny Chavez back in June. Good overall fighter, good flow in his stand-up. He has a leg-heavy attack with good feints, decent hands as well, so he rounds out the striking. Very light on his feet, very quick on his feet, and very dynamic as a striker. We saw that especially in his last fight. I mean, you saw how he got the finish. That was with a spinning back elbow. Good wrestling, solid takedowns. He's Brazilian, so unsurprisingly, he has good jiu-jitsu to go along with that. One thing I noticed with Ricardo Ramos, can't really keep his opponents down, though, so that's going to be potentially relevant for this fight. And he likes to come forward with a constant pace. Let's see if he's able to do that against Austin Lingo, who kind of likes to do the same thing in terms of controlling that pace, controlling that pressure. Lingo has not fought since August 2021. He beat Luis Saldana back then. He is introduced as a boxer and jiu-jitsu practitioner, closes distance pretty decently, like I mentioned, continuous forward pace and pressure, like I was mentioning. A good tight boxing stance. He does keep the chin tucked. He does have good combinations, and he sets his combinations up pretty well. Takedowns are not an active part of his game. He's more of a sprawl and brawl type of fighter, and has decent takedown defense from what I've seen. Just to that note, stylistically, I'm looking back to Austin Lingo's last fight, at least round 1 of his last fight versus Luis Saldana. Saldana was the more dynamic striker. You know, Lingo definitely had his moments, but Saldana's speed, Saldana's movement, his kicks, his striking diversity, it was giving Austin Lingo some problems. And I'm expecting Ramos to be a higher level version of what Saldana showed. I also don't expect Ramos to tire out the way that Saldana did. And I expect Ramos to at least try the takedown attempts, knowing that his grappling is potentially or more likely the better grappling of the two here. I say all of that to say that I do like Ricardo Ramos. Austin Lingo can still be effective in this fight. You know, 1.5 years is not too long of a layoff. And again, versus that more dynamic style, like we saw versus Luis Saldana, although cardio was a factor, Austin Lingo's more traditional style, he was able to find that timing. He was able to be effective. Also, half of Ricardo Ramos's losses have been KO losses. So Austin Lingo can knock him out. He can find that power. But Austin Lingo has not shown that power at this level quite yet. I do like Ricardo Ramos just based on more dynamic striking, based on better movement, and based on a more complete ground game. But this is one of those fights that my gut is telling me could be a parlay buster. So I'm going to stay away from it, but Ricardo Ramos is my pick.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta respect Lingo. He's a tough guy, man. He's gonna move forward. He's gonna look for to land the heavy shots. In the earlier fights, he did show some well-roundedness. I seen him get some takedowns, so I know that's in his game. But in this fight, it would probably be better if he stays on his feet. Ramos has a really good jiu-jitsu. In this fight, I do agree with the striking, what you said there, as far as Ramos having more to offer on the feet. Lingo is he's going to be doing the same thing repeatedly over the 3 rounds if it goes that far. Ramos is going to throw a lot of different attacks, back elbows, spinning elbows, low kick. So it's going to be a fight where Ramos definitely is going to be the guy that could mix it up better. And if he gets the back, if Ramos gets the back, or if he gets some type of guillotine choke, I think he's going to finish the fight there. I actually think he's going to choke him out in this fight. So I'm going to go Ricardo Ramos submission. But yeah, it is a fight that you want to be careful with because Austin Lingo is a dog, and Ramos has been beaten by fighters that rough him up. And Austin Lingo, if he's on, he can definitely bring that style. But I do think Ramos is going to be a bit more slick, get the better shots, and eventually get a choke here. So I like Ricardo Ramos.
Fight number 4, Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann. This, of course, a catchweight fight at this point, and this was a fight that was supposed to happen 2 weeks ago. It was actually the main event at that time, but now it is 3 fights away from the final, or I guess 2 fights away from the final. I'll provide pretty much the same commentary that I provided 2 weeks ago on this one. Ryan Spann was my pick, so I will start with that. Nikita Krylov, of course, we know he's on a winning streak, 2 fights at that. He beat Volkan Ozdemir back in October. Bit of that karate style. He's pretty well-rounded, almost an underrated fighter. He can do a bit of everything, good movement, good striking, good diverse striking, good angles, just making good reads on the feet, and has good combinations to that effect. He can wrestle, 2 takedowns per fight. He can grapple. He actually landed 7 takedowns in his last fight, so you know that he can be very intentional with that. He can grapple, like I said. He does solid work in the clinch against the cage as well. The same can be said about Ryan Spann with sort of his style. I'll talk about that in a second. He's also on a 2-fight winning streak. He beat Dominic Reyes back in November. Stand-up is decent, more of a methodical pace, uses an active jab, has a solid 1-2 as well. Not the most active striker, but Ryan Spann has dangerous power. He might have a questionable chin. He has been finished a few times in his career. He's going to try to wrestle you, or again, at least implement that clinch game, which he's pretty good at having that head position against the cage, keeping you there with the clinch, with the underhooks, with his physical strength. But to that effect, still a respectable 1.5 takedowns per fight. So not to say he's a serious takedown threat, but not to say that he cannot land that takedown. Also just 50% takedown defense for this fight, which is relevant. At the time this fight was announced 2 weeks ago, I was going pretty back and forth on this one. Same can be said now, but I am going to stick with Ryan Spann as my pick. On one hand, I do like Krylov as the more complete fighter. I think Krylov can have more activity with the striking, more intentional with the takedowns. And we saw him take big shots from Volkan Ozdemir in his last fight and survive. But on the other hand, of course, Ryan Spann again has that dangerous power, has that dangerous finishing ability. You know, he's looked good. He looked more refocused. And again, I think he gets it done in this one. I can't ignore the power that he has. I can't ignore the size that he has. My biggest gripe with Ryan Spann has always been which version of Ryan Spann shows up, but it has been the good version lately. I do think it'll be the good version for this fight. And again, I see a lot of threats with Ryan Spann. So close fight, entertaining fight. Ryan Spann's going to be my pick.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, just like you, man. I was going back and forth, but I stuck with Krylov, man, in this spot. I stuck with Krylov. I think that Ryan Spann is definitely live, but he's been finished a couple of times with strikes, and yeah, he's been finished a couple of times with strikes. So when I look at Krylov, he's only had one finish to strikes against Sal Palea, a former beast in the UFC. Um, yeah, that had heavy hands, right? But aside from that, in almost 40 fights he's only been knocked out once. So I think he has a durability edge in this fight. This fight going down from 5 rounds to 3 rounds, I think it definitely benefits Ryan Spann because all he needs to do is come out with 2 good rounds. And he could pick up a decision. So he does have a chance now to win a decision. Versus if it was a 5 round fight, after 2 rounds, he's likely going to slow down and lose the rest of the rounds if Krylov is still there. 3 rounds gives him a good shot here. So it is a tougher fight, I think, on the Krylov side. But I do think Krylov gets it done. I think he mixes it well with his grappling. He's fought heavyweights before. He was a heavyweight. So I don't think the size is going to be that big of an issue here. So I'm going to go Krylov here to mix it up. And I think he can actually finish Spann. I think he can actually knock Spann out as well. So I'm going to go with Krylov in this spot.
Co-main event of the evening. Let's look at Alexander Volkov versus Alexander Romanov. Alexander Volkov had beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik back in June. He likes to come forward. He likes to put that forward pressure on you. We know his striking prowess at this point, of course. Good jab, smooth, quick combinations. Those good straight punch combinations. He's going to throw 4 or 6 punches at a time with those combinations. Again, just really effective with it. He's going to use all of his length and all of his reach advantages that he typically has over his opponents. In this fight specifically, it's going to be 5 inches in both height and reach. Kicks are an active part of his game. Again, just really extending on that reach advantage that he typically has. Very effective calf kick. Willing to engage once he does close distance. Again, just a high-level striker. 70% takedown defense, which is very relevant to highlight in this fight. Alexander Romanov did suffer his first loss to Marcin Tybura back in August. Power wrestling style, good takedowns, good takedown technique, good speed with the takedown entries, good top position. Doesn't really have the best striking. It is something that he is improving fight by fight, but I wouldn't say it's that good. He is a southpaw. He will control center. He will use kicks as well as part of his game. The biggest red flag with Alexander Romanov is his cardio. He gets really tired after round 1. So in some respect, you really only have to handle the early storm. Something that I do not like about Alexander Romanov is this recent slim down to, about 235, 240 pounds. I feel like it doesn't really give him the same strength to hold these guys down. And his cardio has not gotten better as a result of trimming down. In his early days in the UFC, he was maximizing the weight division. He was looking very strong. And again, just trimmed down by 20 pounds and just can't keep the guys down, right? If you're betting, I can see Volkov stuffing those takedown attempts in rounds 2 and 3 because Romanov just hasn't really shown the same strength to hold the guys down with that power wrestling style. I could see Volkov taking over with the striking after those attempts in round 1. If you're betting on Romanov, you're essentially going to bet on him to get it done in the first 3 or 4 minutes of the fight. I think anything beyond that, I feel increasingly confident for Alexander Volkov. And the thing with Volkov, he's a vet at this point, right? 45 pro fights. I think he knows how to handle that early storm. I think he knows how to take on wrestlers. He's a big guy. He put that weight back on so that he's a harder target to take down. And I think he's going to be able to stuff Romanov's attempts, take over with the striking at some point, and get it done as an underdog. Alexander Volkov is my pick.
Yeah, I'm on the Romanov side, man. I think he's going to get back in the win column here. I think he has the perfect takedowns to get Volkov down. I think Volkov, it's going to be hard for him to get the underhooks in this fight against this strong guy. And I think on the mat, I don't think it's going to last long. I think Volkov doesn't do much off his back when he's there, right? And he's going to be fighting a guy with heavy heavy top game, heavy ground and pound. If he's able to let off some ground and pound, I think he can get Volkov out of there in that very first round. So I'm going to go Romanov. I think he has the ability to get this one done here with his wrestling, with his ground and pound. I don't think it's going to go past 2 rounds. So let's say I think he finishes them within the first or second round.
All right, main event time. In that case, we have Petr Yan versus Merab Dvalishvili. A great bantamweight fight here. Highly ranked fighters. Petr Yan had that, of course, infamous split decision loss. Definitely got robbed against Sean O'Malley back in October. We know his style, high technique, high IQ with his stand-up. He's patient. He never forces the issue. The boxing is especially really good. He has good combinations, good striking defense as well. His in and out movement is good. He switches stance really effectively, and he's going to be very methodical with trying to walk you down, trying to make the reads on the feet as to how he should approach his attack. And he is just as good with respect to his wrestling. We see the numbers there, almost 2 takedowns per fight, 56% on the accuracy side of things. He does have good takedowns, really good takedown defense as well, which of course I will talk a little bit more about, and very knowledgeable scrambling if he is taken down. Merab Dvalishvili, we know the name of the game for him is pace. He's going to push that high pace. Cardio seemingly never runs out. He's a relentless wrestler, chain wrestling, smothering wrestling. Of course, one caveat is that cannot keep the guys down. Again, I said beware of guys who have really high takedown numbers. For Merab, 6.5 per fight is insane. 40% takedown accuracy, I should say, is pretty good as well. But again, just can't really keep guys down when he takes them down, but he will go after it again and again and again and again, still finding his way to victory. Now, in terms of his stand-up, it's a lot of feints. It's a lot of level changes. He is getting a bit more patient. He definitely is improved on the feet. He's still explosive. He can still close distance well. And then again, resort to his strengths, which is the takedown. Interesting fight here as I'm analyzing it. A few things I'm looking at. I'm really just looking at comparables here, and some statistics in some way. Petr Yan, 90% takedown defense. We know that's going to definitely be tested here, and it would be ignorant not to consider the Aljamain Sterling versus Petr Yan fights, right? I mean, of course, Merab and Sterling, they're boys, they're close teammates. You got to imagine Sterling is going to speak to strategy and what worked for him and what didn't work for him. In both of those Sterling fights combined, Aljamain was only able to land 3 takedowns. Yes, that's still 3 takedowns, but Petr Yan did defend the takedowns pretty well, and he was able to implement that measured approach to striking that he prefers on the feet. What's interesting to note is that Merab was not able to take down Jose Aldo in their fight. That's another fighter with 90% takedown defense. So it makes you wonder if Merab is going to struggle to take Petr Yan down. What's also interesting in that Merab fight is that Merab still won the fight as the more active and effective striker. Petr Yan's striking activity specifically is going to be the key factor in this one, in my opinion. I think the difference between Petr Yan and Jose Aldo in terms of going up against Merab is that I think Petr Yan will be able to implement that forward pressure. I think Petr Yan will be able to make Merab fight from the outside, similarly to how Aljamain Sterling did. But the activity, similarly in the Aljamain Sterling fight, similarly in the Sean O'Malley fight as well, it's not really allowing Petr Yan to win rounds decisively, at least not in the judges' eyes for whatever reason. But I don't think that Merab presents that type of striking threat that those guys were. O'Malley, of course, elite striker. Aljamain, not maybe elite striker, but very athletic, very dynamic, very long with the reach advantages. And he was, giving Petr Yan some trouble with the speed and with the timing and with the athleticism. I think that Petr Yan will look a lot better in the striking, going up against a striker who's not as capable as his previous opponents. And I do think that Petr Yan will be able to fend off the takedowns in the same way that Jose Aldo was able to. So I like Petr Yan to get back in the win column here. I think he's going to be hungry for a win on top of all the analysis. And I think he gets it done. I can see why he's the favorite that he is, sizable favorite here. And I think he gets the job done. Petr Yan is my pick.
Yeah, this is a crazy fight, man. Merab, he has that relentless pace that can give Yan a lot of problems. Even if he doesn't get the takedowns, he can hold you against the cage like he did to Aldo, and just land strikes, make it boring. And he can do that for 5 rounds. And he's going to be the stronger guy physically in this fight if they do clinch up. Technique wise, I'm on the Yan side. I do think Yan has more technique with the striking. Even his takedown defense, his elusiveness to avoid getting taken down to the mat is really good. And if you do get him down to the mat, he's really quick at getting back up. So even when Sterling was taking Yan down, he was almost up, but Sterling has that ability to jump on your back and be a backpack, right? And that's something that Merab can't really do. So I think this fight's going to stay on the feet, and like not the whole fight, but I think there's going to be good parts of the fight on the feet that give Yan the ability to land that heavy shot like that Marlon Moraes landed. Yan has much more power, more finishing ability, so I can see him definitely catching Merab with a counter. He's a far better striker. The wrestling, yes, Merab's the better guy, but the gap is wide, but not that wide. But when you look at the striking, the gap is so wide. Yan's hungry as well. Yan's gonna be the bigger guy this time in this fight. I think Yan gets it done as well. So I'm gonna go Petr Yan.
All right, let's take it to Vegas for a pretty good fight night here. Let's consider some underdogs. Let's consider some parlay action. Of course, I will start by reading out the underdogs. We're looking at Tyson Nam as an underdog versus Bruno Silva. Tony Gravely is an underdog. Ariane Lipski, Guido Cannetti, Josh Fremd, Raphael Assunção, Łukasz Brzeski. The Petrino fight is a pick'em, so we'll consider either of those fighters underdogs. Jonathan Martinez is an underdog. Austin Lingo, Ryan Spann, Alexander Volkov, and Merab Dvalishvili.
Yeah, I like Anton Turkalj.
Anton Turkalj. So again, though, that's a pick'em, so we will consider either side the underdog in that one. In terms of underdog pick for myself, there are 2 fighters that I'm considering. One of them is Ryan Spann. I think Zan brought up a very important factor, that going down from a 5-rounder to a 3-rounder makes me feel even better about the underdog potential to cash out there. Another underdog I'm looking at is Alexander Volkov. I think in terms of both of our analysis of this fight, kind of 2 sides of the same coin in some ways, right? I'm basically betting on Volkov surviving the storm, and Zan is in some ways saying, hey, Romanov could get him out of there early. So yeah, those are going to be my 2 underdogs that I provide there, Ryan Spann and Alexander Volkov. Now, in terms of parlay action, who are you taking a look at?
Okay, parlay. Let's go with she needs a win. JJ Aldrich and Sedriques Dumas.
And Sedriques Dumas. So those 2 would be a double up, pretty much, a 1.97. $100 is going to give you a total return of $197. And for our bigger bettors, $250 is going to give you a total of $492. I will say for that ticket, winning is very important. So please do not flinch at that being under 2.0. That is a very valuable parlay right there. In terms of my parlay, I'm looking at Bruno Silva. I'm looking at Mario Bautista despite the odds. And I mean, again, I know Turkalj is your underdog pick, but I must be missing something here. I feel pretty good with Vitor Petrino. I'm going to have those 3 fights potentially on a parlay. That would be a 3.22. That means $100 will return a total of $322. And for our bigger bettors, $250 will return a total of $805. So let's sign off on that note. This has been UFC Fight Night, Merab Dvalishvili versus Petr Yan. your full card prediction video presented by yours truly here at Boxing MMA Picks. Again, if you are a regular viewer of the channel, please subscribe to Boxing MMA Picks if you have not done so already. If this is your first time viewing our channel, thank you. We appreciate it. Don't necessarily subscribe yet. We want to prove our value to you, and then you can go ahead and hit that subscribe button. But we would appreciate if you do hit the like button, the thumbs up on this video. And most importantly, we want to hear from you in the comments. How do you feel about our picks? Who is your underdog pick? What parlays are you considering? Or again, if you want additional analysis on any fight or situation, we're more than happy to provide our analysis on that as well. Officially signing off. He goes by Zan. I go by Harris. This has been UFC Fight Night, Yan versus Dvalishvili, your full card prediction video presented by yours truly at Boxing MMA Picks. As usual, let's get this money.
Let's do it.